So, one of the first stories that we're going to take a look at is one that is rather strange. And I understand that this is probably not your typical AI news story, but guys, things are about to get weird in the world of AI because AI, I've realized it's starting to proliferate beyond the standard uses of ChatGPT and AI agents. It's starting to get to the third degrees where people are starting to use these chatbots for, pretty much anything. Currently, Meta is in the spotlight and it's all for the wrong reasons. Meta currently has a strange angle. They've been coming under intense criticism for doing something honestly rather strange. Why are they putting chatbots out there that are Russian girl stepmom with very flirtatious undertones and essentially blurring ethical boundaries, engaging in inappropriate conversations? They introduced a variety of personalized chatbots for Instagram and Facebook, and the backlash has been absolutely insane. You've got OpenAI, Anthropic, and XAI off achieving intelligence and all of these crazy discoveries, and you've got Meta introducing chatbots like stepmom. There is a very, very stark contrast, and I think that this is one of the reasons that Meta isn't currently succeeding, at least in public perception, when it comes to their generative AI efforts. Honestly, broadly speaking, I have to admit Meta's AI efforts are really good. Like if you've been paying attention to the broad range of AI releases, I do think something innovative is probably going to come out of Meta. But on this strange front, I think their generative AI area, just, at least in the public eye, it just doesn't look to be that polished. And I think Meta definitely needs to tighten up their act. And it's not just me saying this, there are multiple articles now coming out about Meta's, huge push into AI might already be crumbling into chaos. So basically, this article just speaks about how the superintelligence lab is now going to be split into 4 separate groups: research, superintelligence, products, and infrastructure. And when I think about this, it's actually pretty insane because I don't think I would have even pegged Meta to be winning the AI race, but they do have people like Jan LeCun, who is a very, very accomplished AI researcher. And I will say that the company now, with their focus on superintelligence, I think they definitely may have jumped ahead of the gun, because now they're splitting things up and they're trying to restructure. And one of the craziest reasons that a lot of people sort of put Meta in the driver's seat, which is really strange because Meta essentially was just pouring billions of dollars into AI signing bonuses. They were just trying to lure talent from OpenAI, apparently with $100 million signing bonuses, people from Apple, people from Google DeepMind, and, people have already left those companies. But some of those who've left those companies for Meta have actually already returned to those companies because apparently Meta's culture just isn't that great. Now, essentially, insiders are suggesting that there is restructuring already going on at Meta, even though they're spending billions of dollars on AI talent. And apparently, they are trying to really, really retreat from the Meta and the VR metaverse. If you aren't familiar with that, Meta tried to basically hop onto the VR bandwagon, but they were really late and they got burned because they wasted billions of dollars. And some people are wondering if Meta is about to take that same gamble again. But I think Meta's AI push can stabilize, provided they do have the talent. They already do have certain key divisions that do work well, but with a disappointing Llama 4, billions of dollars spent in AI researchers, and many of those leaving already, talking about a culture which just doesn't seem that it's going to, go in the right direction, I do wonder where on earth Meta is headed. For me personally, I do think that they need to really, really get to grips with this because they don't have time to waste. Other companies are really already set in their grooves. Anthropic's got coding, XAI have got Grok in their, really advanced reasoning, and ChatGPT, well, they have clearly their broad user base. And Google pretty much kind of are slowly having the mass market with, a variety of different innovative AI products. So Meta, I'm not sure where they are going to find and carve out their market, but they need to do it relatively quickly because previously they had open source and that kind of space just got completely eaten by DeepSeek. So I do wonder if Meta can regain control. I think maybe under the leadership of Jan LeCun, they can probably work something out because he's definitely breaking new ground. And I'm pretty sure he's on the right track for when we are scheduled to get to AGI. But in other news, if we're not racing about companies, there was this story which I spoke about. And honestly, there's been a lot more news around this story than most people have realized. So basically, I spoke about this a few days ago where I said that AI experts have returned from China stunned. And they basically are speaking about a fundamental truth that most people are going to miss. It's the fact that the United States grid is so weak that the race, okay, for AGI and AI may already be over. Now, this sounds like complete lies, fabrications, and an over exaggeration of the energy disparities between the two countries. However, when we take a look at things, it's worse than it looks because they didn't realize that China has been so advanced in AI technologies, backed by a robust energy grid, a large scale investment in data centers, and there's actually been a coordinated national strategy enabling swift deployment of scaling AI systems. And the US experts were essentially saying that, their ability to overcome challenges posed by American export controls are incredible because, of course, as you know, we posed those export controls to kind of, somewhat slow them down. But when you have so much energy, so much freely available compute, we start to wonder, are China going to stay behind forever? And those experts that returned from their trip were basically saying that, look, the United States needs some kind of build out immediately. We need to really compete here because the future, it looks like clean energy, nuclear energy. I'm not sure which one it's going to be. But if we're really going to compete, and we know that one of the driving factors for AI success in the future will be compute, which is largely going to be a bottleneck, we're going to have to ensure that we definitely have the most when it comes to other countries. So this was one of those ones where I am wondering, is Project Stargate going to be online? Like, are those parts going to be online as quick as they need to be? I do know that countries like the United States do things pretty slowly, but considering the fate of many individuals are at risk here, I do think that Project Stargate is likely to, go full steam ahead. Some people are calling, false on Project Stargate. Some people like Elon Musk are saying they don't have the money for Project Stargate. Project Stargate is completely fake. I think it's going to go ahead because when you have China competing at this level, they've already shown us what they can do with their open source models and with all of those chip, restrictions. I wouldn't be surprised if within 5 to 10 years, China has been ahead. I mean, if you've been a subscriber of this channel and you've watched my previous videos, you'll remember Eric Schmidt saying that China is not as far ahead or as far behind, I should have said, as we think they are. And we really need to get our stuff together because they are organized, they are competent, and they know exactly what they're doing. So the race is really on. So we have to, keep an eye on any foreign adversary that might be out there. And I think the US has to step it up a notch if they are to ensure that they maintain the lead over any foreign nation. Now, in terms of AI doing new things, we did have GPT-5 doing new mathematics. Now, I really, really like this story because this was a story that surprised everyone. If you remember when GPT-5 was released, there was a plethora of different stories coming out about how GPT-5 was essentially this poster child for disappointment and the AI bubble. However, other individuals decided to dig deeper into the reasoning capabilities of GPT-5. And in doing so, they realized that the model is a good model. And what I mean by that is that it's got good vibes. Oftentimes, benchmarks don't truly show you just how smart a model is. And one of the ways in which you can do that is by pushing the model to its limits in areas that most people wouldn't have. One of those areas is, of course, mathematics and discovering new maths. So, being able to make a significant contribution by independently generating a new correct mathematical proof regarding step size bounds and convex optimization is marking the first time that an AI has produced research level mathematics that was not present in any existing literature or data, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And considering the fact that so many people thought that this model was a disappointment, I think we really need to reset our expectations. One thing that I realized that AI is now doing for most people, and it's quite unfortunate, is that a lot of people think that AI is slowing down because it's no longer pushing the frontiers of what I call basic level intelligence. If you have an average person using a chatbot, they interact with the chatbot in fairly simple ways. There's nothing really novel that the average person does. And in doing so, what you tend to have is models that somewhat cap out at a certain limit. And what I mean by that is that, like, if you're, the average person, you probably use the chatbot to summarize a few emails. Maybe you ask it to write a few documents or something like that. And maybe you speak with a voice mode every now and again. But realistically, the average person is not going to be discovering new mathematics. But what I've personally found is that every time a new model is released, and at least at this stage of the game where models are fronting on PhD level intelligence and beyond, I have to refer back to those who are in those fields. And oftentimes, what I do see is that those individuals working in those fields that are really, really difficult and complex topics, they often tell a different story to the average user who's maybe vibe coding a website or something like that. And this is one of those examples again, where this person managed to discover new maths. I'm seeing other people in medicine that are similar, that are doing really, really amazing things. And I think it goes to show that as the models get smarter, we have to understand that to the average person, they're probably going to look the same. For the average person, GPT-3 was a very, very small chatbot that, you could do a few things with. GPT-4 was a huge step up, but GPT-5, discovering new mathematics and physics and doing all of these crazy things, the average person just doesn't have use for that. So bear in mind when new chatbots get released, of course, companies probably should do a better job of advertising what the model does and what kind of areas it's best at. But this is something that I personally think everyone should know about, because if it is true, and I believe it is after doing the video and all the research, it means that AI is still moving ahead at the same pace it originally has. Now, something that also I found to be pretty interesting, and this was getting a lot of praise on Twitter, was that GPT-5 was being quoted a lot of the time by stating that it doesn't know. Now, for those of you who are thinking, well, if a chatbot doesn't know something, why on earth is that something that's good anyways? Well, the thing is that if a chatbot can tell you, hey, I don't know this, and it's not obvious, this is a great sign that hallucinations are about to disappear. Now, whilst hallucinations are probably kind of inherent in the LLM's design, I do think that having an LLM be able to tell you in instances where it doesn't know what's happening is a really, really good sign, because so many times of using these LLMs in extended periods, you do have to think, is this answer real? Is this answer hallucinated? And oftentimes you waste a lot of time trying to figure out what the LLM has said. So in this example, the LLM says, I don't know a clean yes/no immediately, and it's not obvious. I can try a search, I can do this, or would you try me to do this? And I think this is one of those areas where other models probably will go, because a lot of the times these models are designed to be harmful and helpful and just provide an answer no matter what. But in doing so, you kind of limit the model, because sometimes it's just going to spit out an answer even when it may not know. Having that kind of intelligence to say, you know what, I don't know, this is certainly a great sign. Now, when we look at models that are continuing to get better, something that Sam Altman recently said in an interview really struck me, because I don't know how the world is going to evolve when it comes to authentication methods. As these models continue to get better, as AI systems continue to perform and, in some cases emulate what humans do even better than themselves, how on earth are we starting to authenticate ourselves in the modern world? Old methods of just, Face ID, Voice ID, all of these ways are about to be thrown out the window when we have AI tools, especially open source ones, that can completely do anything. Here's a statement from Sam Altman, and I think law changes are going to need to be swift and necessary.
I am very nervous about this. A thing that terrifies me is apparently there are still some financial institutions that will accept a voice print as authentication for you to move a lot of money or do something else. You say a challenge phrase and they just do it. That is a crazy thing to still be doing. AI has fully defeated that. AI has fully defeated most of the ways that people authenticate currently, other than passwords, but all of these fancy, take a selfie and wave or do your voice or whatever. I am very nervous that we have a significant impending fraud crisis because of this. We have tried, I think other people in our industry have tried to sort of warn people hey, just because we're not releasing the technology doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Some bad actor is going to release it. This is not a super difficult thing to do. This is coming very, very soon. And there's obviously some reports now of these sort of ransom attacks where people have the voice of your kid or your parent and they make this urgent call. That is going to get so compelling. Society has to deal with this problem more generally, but people are going to have to change the way they interact. They're going to have to change the way they verify, this person calling me. Right now it's a voice call. Soon it's going to be a video FaceTime. It'll be indistinguishable from reality. and teaching people how to authenticate in a world like that, how to think about, the fraud impacts. This is a huge deal.
Now, another story that was pretty cool was Gemini 2.5 Flash. And like I said, if we're talking about authentication, this is one of the biggest stories that isn't getting enough attention. 2.5 Flash is that VO moment all over again, but this time for image. So this model, I need you guys to understand, it's an image editing model on the image arena with the largest score jump in history. So this is the model that you can use to edit any single picture. And in doing so, you can create things that are basically a combination of reality and AI. So it allows you to be super, super creative. Take a look at this image here. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this one already. You've got Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai on a beach together in a natural way. Completely looks realistic. What about if you wanted to rotate your head or a camera angle and get a different kind of picture? You can easily do that with this image editing software. Or what about if you wanted to restore an old picture that you had a few decades ago that you wanted to see how it would look in today's modern color restoration? Or what about if you wanted to fool your friends that Trump was next to you? I mean, the possibilities with such a model are endless. If you're a filmmaker, this is something that could easily save you hours and hours of time every single set or shoot. I mean, honestly, it gets pretty crazy what you can do with these models. And I'm starting to wonder at what point social media or online just becomes a blur between AI and reality, because now we have something that literally does that. So honestly, I'm somewhat excited because I know that small indie filmmakers are going to be using these tools to be able to output, pieces of great work. But at the same time, we do have to be a little bit concerned that this might just undermine the fabric of reality, because if you can go online and not really know what's real or what, then the online user space starts to degrade. And so platforms will have to make a shift to ensure that doesn't occur at all. Definitely going to be interesting for the future. So just remember this date, because this is probably the time where you start to realize that, oh, I'm starting to see images and now even I'm the one getting tricked. It's not just my 75-year-old grandma. So, and we can also take a look at this story here. This is, of course, the new Nvidia robot called the Jetson AGX Store. This is the super powerful computer chip for robots that helps them think and see more like humans. It's designed to basically be the brain of advanced robots. Think like robot helpers, warehouse robots, and even walking robots called humanoids. It's got tons of processing power, huge memory, and can handle hard tasks like understanding speech, recognizing things, and making smart decisions. And this is 7.5 times faster than the other Nvidia robot called Jetson Orin, which basically means robots can react quickly and do many different things. It uses the Blackwell GPU architecture and has 128 gigabytes of memory, allowing robots to use big AI models for understanding language, pictures, actions, all at the same time. And this can actually run modern AI software from Nvidia, which is pretty crazy. So overall, this is the robot brain that helps robots see, think, and understand the world. And it's a major upgrade for making robots truly useful and interactive for people and work. And if we're talking robots, I really want to show you guys this video because this is from the Figure demo. So as you guys know, Figure is that company developing incredible humanoid robots. They are currently in the process of their Figure 2 robot, which is really incredible. And what they're also doing is working on the brain for the robot. So the AI model called Helix, which is essentially the brain, is now at the point where it can do something incredible. It can fold laundry. And I know that sounds, not impressive, but we have to really understand what folding laundry is. It's impressive because it's way harder for robots than you'd actually think. A towel is soft, it keeps changing shape, so there isn't one perfect way to grab it. The robot has to use very careful finger movements to grab corners, flatten wrinkles, and fold it nearly, something only humans can do. And the cool part is that they didn't, design the AI or make it more complex. They only gave it new training data, which is basically just a few video examples of laundry folding, and it adapted to the new task, meaning that the same robot brain could switch from one job to a completely different job, just completely learning from data. So it's pretty crazy that this is happening because these developments means that humanoid robots are going to be doing things in the real world faster than we can think. And it means that we're about to get tons of more co-workers in the digital and physical world sooner than we all thought. There was also another example of this, and this one was where it was essentially taking that laundry and putting it into the washing machine. And now I think this is pretty funny, pretty hilarious, because this is, one of the videos where, if you remember AI, like you're really, really into AI, you'll remember the news story where someone says, oh, I wanted AI to do the laundry and do the dishes, and now it's just doing my art. Like, you're like, oh, I wanted to do art while AI does my dishes, and now AI is doing my art while I do the dishes. Well, I think the future where AI pretty much does everything is coming here. And this is really strange because the way how the AI is manipulating the clothes looks incredibly human. I know it's an incredibly short video, but you have to understand, just 2 years ago, this company didn't even exist. And now they have a full humanoid robot that is picking up things and putting things into a washing machine like you've never seen before. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Now, honestly, this is the video. This is the video that I've seen this week that just made me think, what on earth is going on in AI? So there was this demonstration that just blew my mind. Every 3 months or so, I see a video and I'm just like, man, we're really living in the future, because this is humanoid versus humanoid, or humanoid versus human. And this is one of the hardest benchmarks for humanoid robots, because in table tennis, okay, the ball can exceed 5 meters per second or 11 miles per hour. And the humanoid robot has to see, predict, swing within sub-second reaction times. When you think about what it's having to do here, I mean, it's pretty incredible. That's the same level of responsiveness as a trained human athlete. And that's an insane bar from robotics. And they didn't just hard code the swings. They used a certain framework. They had a model-based planner, which predicts the ball's future trajectory and decides how/where to hit it. They had a reinforcement learning whole body controller. This makes the robot actually move its limbs with agility and balance. And table tennis isn't just about the arm. You need things like footwork, balance, torso control to be able to strike effectively. And this system generates, coordinated arm, leg movements. It mimics human motion. And this isn't just a specialized ping pong bot like, other robots. They validated it on a general humanoid bot, which is, designed for many different tasks. You can see the G1, this robot is designed for many different tasks. So having the robot, plopping it in there, and it's now able to play tennis, I honestly am like speechless. That's the only way I could describe it. I literally watched the video again and again and again and again and again, because I was like, I didn't think this was coming for a very long time. Now, I will say that it isn't all happening on device. If you pay attention, let me show you guys this. There are some cameras in there, and this isn't to discredit what they've achieved at all, but there are cameras here that are, tracking certain movements, which does add to the final output. So if we do hit play on this video again, you'll now see that, the cameras there are the ones that are able to provide additional data. But I do think that it is pretty crazy that this is possible with humanoid robots, where, it was only a few months ago that some of these were even released, which makes me and leads me to believe that the kind of development that we're seeing here is just absolutely insane. Like, I really didn't think we were going to see like humanoid versus humanoid, even with, cameras and stuff like that, for quite some time. A lot of the times, the movements that these robots are doing are essentially, trained off, millions and millions of times in simulation. And then you come out in the real world and then you can do them a few times. But being able to respond to something real and unpredicted is absolutely insane. One of the biggest stories, definitely should be on like 1 million views on every platform, in my honest opinion. Now we get on into the areas where we've got different, people talking about different AI timelines. We had Dario Amodei. He's speaking about the, AI's potential, OpenAI rivalry. And one of the things he speaks about here is his AI timeline. And remember how in the beginning of this video, I spoke about my AI timeline and why I still think that AI is moving fast ahead. Although Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, does have to have short timelines because, of course, he wants people to invest in his company. I think that when you listen to this video, you'll understand why he still has such a short timeline.
So why do you have such a short timeline, and why should we believe in yours?
Yeah, it really depends what you mean by timeline. So I think these terms are totally meaningless. I don't know what AGI is. I don't know what superintelligence is. It sounds like a marketing term.
It is marketing.
It sounds like something designed to activate people's dopamine. So you'll see in public, I never use those terms, and I'm actually careful to criticize the use of those terms. I'm saying the situation is that when you're on an exponential, you can really get fooled by it. 2 years away from when the exponential goes totally crazy, it looks like it's just starting to be a thing. And so that's the fundamental dynamic. We saw that with the internet in the 90s, right? Where it was like, networking speeds and the underlying speed of the computers were getting fast. And over a few years, it became possible to basically build a digital global communications network on top of all this when it wasn't possible just a few years ago. And almost no one, except for a few people, really saw the implications of that and how fast it would happen. And so that's where I'm coming from. That's what I think. Now, I don't know, like, if a bunch of satellites crashed, maybe the internet would have taken longer. If there was an economic crash, maybe it would have taken a little longer. So we can't be sure of the exact timelines, but I think people are getting fooled by the exponential and not realizing how fast it might be, how fast I think it probably will, although I'm not.
And so, yeah, in that clip, Dario Amodei clearly talks about the fact that exponentials are very, very hard to think about. There's this often, simple thing where you think about this simple experiment where you ask a person, would you take a penny that doubles every day for 30 days, or would you take like $1 million? And most people say, oh, I'm going to take $1 million. But if you actually have a penny that doubled every day for 30 days, this would accumulate to over $10.7 million. So it's like, would you really factor in exponentials at the current point? It's very, very hard for humans to factor this in. And that's why his AI timelines are still very short, because he realizes that when you factor in exponentials, it means that we really could have some advanced AI just around the corner. So now, when we do get that advanced AI, it's not all good news, because Mo Gaudat basically says that because AI is going to be the smartest thing to exist, it's inevitable that it will essentially be in control. And, unfortunately, I just don't disagree. I mean, he's got a point.
And, when their bosses tell them to do certain things, as I said, in the second dilemma is when they completely are handed over everything. And that's unavoidable when you really think about it, because the first dilemma is what led us here to this arms race of America trying to win against China, and, OpenAI trying to win against Google. Everyone feels that if they lose, they will lose big, so they're investing more to win. The second dilemma is in that same vein, if you want. Everyone will have to hand over to the smartest person in the room, and the smartest person in the room is always going to be an AI within a few years, right? And so it's inevitable that within 5 to 10 years, all important decisions will either be handed over to an AI or you'll become irrelevant.
Now, as we spoke about before, one of the things that, when you've got frontier intelligence at your fingertips that people are doing is people are using ChatGPT for health. I definitely find that this is really cool to interpret, your test results, other things. I mean, it's just good because you can ask a million questions that you maybe would want to when the doctors, maybe they don't have time, maybe don't have, the right healthcare, but it's just really cool that for $20 a month, you can ask like a million questions and get really nuanced health advice that otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
AI launch of all time, maybe the most anticipated product launch, because we've been talking about it for a while, but we're super excited. I mean, we put a lot into it, a lot of the things that actually people might not even think about. Like, we did a lot of work on the health side. Yeah. So I added a lot of health data, because one of the things we see is that people are using ChatGPT all the time to ask about health data, whether it's, just this thing happened to my kid, what should I do? All the way to, I just got a cancer diagnosis. Here's a bunch of data. How should I think about this? And it doesn't replace a doctor, but it sure is helpful to have this super smart thing that you can talk to 24/7. That can complement.
I gotta say, I love that part of the launch.
One thing that I probably will be doing a video on sometime soon is that I didn't realize that OpenAI were working on their custom chips. I do realize, yes, I've spelled custom wrong there. We'll change it in another video. But yeah, they're working on their own custom chips. And I think maybe they've seen that Google's TPUs have significantly helped them in their advantage to be able to deploy, and develop those significantly advanced AIs. But OpenAI are clearly working on their own custom chips for future versions of AI, which I found to be pretty crazy. This was a podcast with Kevin Whale, CPO of OpenAI, and on this Moonshot podcast, and it was really, really, really interesting to just hear him talk about this.
Do you have all the manufacturing and fab all figured out too? Is that
we're working with partners on that for sure? But yeah, it's there's this class of problem where you have a fairly it's a specific problem, and you have a way that you can grade it. In this case, speed of the chip that you designed. Mm-hmm. And in problems like that, where you have these well-specified problems, you can just iterate and iterate and iterate and apply arbitrary amounts of GPU. And so far, I think we're going to see arbitrary amounts of improvement. Yeah, we're working on.
Now, one of the stories that I probably should have covered quite a while back, but I was really, busy building something in AI that I probably will release fairly soon. Nothing crazy, don't worry about it. But yeah, Genie 3 was just something, once again, that blew my mind completely. As in, I sat there thinking, I knew we were advancing AI and I knew Genie 3 was being developed, but I thought Genie 3 would take at least another year to get to the point where you've got interactive real worlds that basically are like a simulation. And I think one of the key things that Genie 3 did for most people in the AI space and outside of the AI space was really, really put forward the, argument that we are somewhat living in a simulation. If you can truly take a picture of something and then immediately go into a world that is based simply off that picture and it's photorealistic, it has world memory. So if you do something in that world and you exit the camera angle and you go back to that area, it completely remembers what you're doing. I think that is something that is absolutely insane. I mean, being able to control this kind of thing, I mean, in 100 years, what do you think this would look like? And I know sometimes people are like, oh, like, ages ago we had video games thinking we were going to play these high quality video games. But I mean, look at what's going on right now. I mean, there are, of course, S curves. And if this is another, S curve or even slightly exponential, this is pretty incredible to have real time anything. I mean, this is why I say AI is continually expanding and, we're going to be able to do incredible things in the future. And I'm borderline speechless about this because I just didn't think this would be even possible. But it just goes to show that Google are truly innovative when it comes to this area. I probably will let the full Genie 3 demo video play. But I mean, even this clip right here, this is one that you could probably send to someone and maybe, just maybe, they'll start to get convinced that they might be living in a simulation. I'm not going to get too much into that topic, but it certainly is pretty crazy to walk down, look at your legs in this crazy thing. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's mind-blowing, the stuff that's honestly out there. I mean, it feels fairly strange to look at this, that, it's not a video game, it's just some kind of weird simulation, and be like, maybe Nick Bostrom might be onto something. And DeepMind are also talking about AGI and Genie 3 and how that all relates together.
I think AGI is something itself which is relatively subjective, and people have different interpretations of what you mean by AGI. So I think it would be quite maybe grandiose to say our model is the key thing in the whole field that will enable AGI. But I think for me, an AGI needs to be embodied and be able to act in the physical world. That's what really excites me. I think that could really improve people's quality of life in any demographic anywhere in the world. And so with that framing, I definitely think this is an important tool. I can't see how an embodied AGI or an AGI that is embodied would be able to operate in any scenario in the world without being able to simulate it, to gather experience and learn from its own experience. Because that's the paradigm that we've used in other settings to get superhuman capabilities or even just robust capabilities. And so I believe very strongly that we need simulation. And I also believe very strongly that we won't be able to build a simulator of the real world any other way. So when you combine those two things, I think, yes, it is a big step for my version of AGI.